If you ever had a rogue or thief in your group, you know this situation. Inevitable, the group will try to sneak past a guard, lay in ambush, or sneak up on a monster to backstab it. Then you require everyone to roll a stealth check, and the dwarf cleric in plate armor fails. Roll initiative. Or you run a game of Cyberpunk, maybe Shadowrun, and your group plans a proper heist, devising plans to circumvent the speculated security for 4 hours. Then, 15 minutes into the heist, they come across the unexpected motion sensors at a door and trigger an alarm. Roll initiative. Both of these situations are frustrating. The first one mainly for the players, because their thief characters never get to do what they're actually good at. Never get to sneak around, never get to break into anything, never get to backstab. The second one for the GM, because you had to listen for hours to your group making plans, all the while knowing they were doomed to failure because they overlooked something. So, how can we run stealth, infiltration and heists differently so that our grand Mission Impossible fantasies are fulfilled and everyone at the table is having fun? If that interests you, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. There's a lot more interesting RPG stuff where this came from. Now, let me give you a few pointers on how you could run these situations, starting with the smallest one, working our way up to the biggest. So, back to the first situation. Your group wants to sneak past a guard. Your first instinct is to have everyone who wants to get past to succeed at a stealth check. Maybe even want to roll perception checks for all of the guards that might spot them. While that might be realistic and by the rules, if you demand every group member to succeed at a stealth check, failure is almost guaranteed. Even if everyone in the group is decent at stealth, that is still about a 20% chance of failure for every roll. That adds up. It gets of course worse if there's a group member who's bad at sneaking. Running it like this makes stealth almost impossible. Just initiative with extra steps. So, how to mitigate this? Maybe only the group member who are good at stealth should attempt to sneak past. Sure, that would give better chances of success, but then you would be splitting up the group. You want everyone to go further into the adventure. Also, if you demand 2, 3 or 4 stealth checks, the odds of success are still slim. Or you could call for a group check. Only demand that half of the group members succeed at the check, so that the good rolls will make up for the bad ones. Maybe only demand the character with the lowest score to check against the highest perception. While that lowers the odds of success, at least it's only a single check. Or you could even go so far to only demand the skill check from the group member with the highest score, reasoning that they lead the effort with their expertise. I prefer the last one, but I love for my players to come up with an idea of what that actually looks like. Maybe the rogue sneaks ahead and only signals for the rest of the group to follow once the coast is clear. Or maybe they distract the guard so the rest of the group could follow. There could of course be different solutions for the challenge that the guard presents. The rogue could take it down silently. You could distract, seduce, or bribe the guard using different skills. A sleep spell might also solve this problem. And if you as a GM are open to these possible solutions, maybe even nudge your players into thinking outside of the box, suddenly the challenge becomes way more interesting than a simple stealth check. It becomes its own little puzzle to solve creatively. Continue to add security challenges for the players to pass: guards, patrols, dogs, locks, alarms, and traps. And your stealth challenge grows to an entire adventure, an infiltration, a heist, a run, whatever you want to call it. Heists can be a lot of fun. They are a bit like dungeon crawling, with guards, locks, traps, and puzzles to overcome to get the treasure. I think the difference comes down to prior knowledge. A dungeon is often an unexplored space, so the adventure becomes exploring the dungeon and facing the challenges as they come up. A heist is often at a known location. Scouting the place and finding out what security challenges you are going to face is often the first part of a heist. And once you do, the challenge becomes to plan how to overcome these challenges before you actually go to the place. Prepare necessary group members, equipment, distractions, blackmail, and bribes. Plan out every minute detail. This planning scene is part of almost every heist movie, and they can be a lot of fun at the game table too. But they can also grow quickly out of hand. If the heist is more complicated than getting through like 3 doors, or one of your group members tends to overthink and overcomplicate the planning, then can drag on for hours and become a boring slog. Especially for you as the GM, because you know what challenges the group actually needs to prepare for, and which one only exists in the players' minds. And of course, which ones they are overlooking that will bite them in the ass. So, how to handle planning so it doesn't grow out of hand and drag down the game? There are several approaches. If the heist is simple enough, just 2 or 3 security challenges to overcome, you can just let it play out. Even a paranoid overthinker should not take more than an hour to figure this one out. If the heist is more complicated, however, you can make use of the same narrative technique that heist movies use to keep up the pace and tension: the flashback. Just play out the barest minimum of planning. Ask your group to come up with only the gist of their plan, only their approach. If they want to use stealth or deception, if they want to go in as a group or split up the party, and what their entry points are. And believe me, even this barest minimum of planning can take several hours if you don't remind your notorious overplanners of the time. Then, give them a number of points and tokens, depending on how many they are, their character's competence, and how much time the group had to prepare for the heist. I'd say at least 1 token for each player, better 2 or 3 if the heist is longer. And I specifically give the tokens out to the individual players, so everyone at the table gets to use them. If you have a group pool, you run the risk of only a few players hugging the spotlight throughout the entire heist. And now comes the trick. You just start the heist with the first challenge, and have the players face the security hurdles, guards, locks, traps, and puzzles as they come up. Now they can think up their solution to the challenges that are actually there, instead of the ones they might never face. Let them be creative, discuss how to overcome them, and if they find that they need something to overcome this challenge that they would have needed to prepare before the heist, a piece of equipment, a bribe, a fake identity, or whatever, let them spend 1 of the tokens to have made that preparation. You can just leave it at that. Let them spend the token, maybe the gold they would have needed to spend, and continue on with the adventure. But if the solution is a bit more elaborate, and you think it sounds interesting, you can play out the flashback in detail. Heck, the flashback could become an entire adventure, even an entire campaign. You could start your players in the heist situation, and then as they face their first challenge, flashback to how the crew actually got together for this one last job.
Sanchez, you son of a bitch.
And then continue to use the actual heist and its challenges as a narrative frame that gives the reason for the actual adventures of the campaign as you play through a number of flashbacks. Alright, enough sidetracking, back to topic. So now you can run an interesting and fun stealth challenge, and you have reined in the hours-long planning of a heist. What remains is the last problem. If just one failed check, one failed challenge ruins the entire heist, then you might as well storm in guns blazing and fight your way through from the start. So we don't want that. Sure, eventually we want for something unexpected to happen, everything to go wrong, and the group having to desperately improvise and struggle to somehow still reach their goal and get out alive. But we only want that to happen in the last part of the adventure, when the group is so close to success they can almost taste the champagne. Maybe an alarm triggers when the object of desire is in their hands, or something goes wrong on the way out. Maybe they only run into a dastardly ambush when they actually try to deliver the goods. But it would be a shame if the group fails to get past the lions that guard the gardens of the Tower of the Elephant and never actually gets inside to face the wonders and horrors of the tower itself. So, how to handle this? It's easy if you're using the tokens. For a token, you can allow the group to pass a challenge without a skill check. Maybe even allow them to spend a token retroactively to succeed at a skill check even if they failed the roll. Eventually, the tokens will run out, but at that point, the group will be so far into the heist that an action-packed finale with combat and chase scenes is just what is needed as the climax for the adventure. You could also use what Blades in the Dark calls a clock. Have a certain number of fails the group needs to accumulate before they trigger a general alarm. You could use a second clock with the number of successes the group needs to get the goods as well, to keep track of the entire adventure, if you want to structure it like that. But I'm a big fan of visual representation and actual maps for my adventures. Good advice in general is to let the consequences of one failed check not be disastrous right away. In a stealth situation, a failed roll might mean the guard has heard something, or spotted tracks and now comes in to investigate. Or maybe the thieves have been spotted, but just by one guard. Can you talk your way out of the situation? Or take out the guard before it raises the alarm? Ask your players how they want to overcome this new challenge. In this playstyle, a failed roll just becomes a new situation, a new challenge to overcome. This is sometimes called the fail-forward approach, and it's basically how the entire Powered by the Apocalypse system functions. Instead of having disastrous consequences right away, just complicate life for the characters, present new challenges, have them use up their resources, their equipment, spells, and tokens, of course. And as these resources run low, and your players slowly run out of options to deal with the challenges of the adventure, the tension of the game naturally rises. Eventually, the players will have to put all of their remaining resources into one last desperate gamble to overcome the last challenges. And at that point, success or failure should be up in the air. And then it's okay for the outcome of the adventure to come down to even a single roll of the die. And that's basically it. That's how I run stealth and heist adventures. But what about you? Any comments or pieces of advice you'd like to share? Let us know in the comments below. For now, I bid thee farewell, dreamers, until we shall meet again.